Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out this episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I'm here with.
Vander, hello.
And today we're going to talk about the Feywild Companion, a third-party source book that you can find for Dungeons& and Dragons 5th Edition at dmsguild.com. This is written by, this is the lead designer was Jimmy Flowers.
They had a lot of great stuff. They had character origins, so replacing character races and lineage. They had a lot of subclasses, one per class. Backgrounds, different spells, items, feats, a whole bunch of stuff. So we're just going to go through it, and we'll probably label in the timestamp down below what we're talking about to make life easier for you. First we had character origins. You were hyped about, I forget which one was the one that you were super hyped about, but if you want to start us off, Manny.
Well, I do like all of them. I think they're really well done. The Feybound, though, is probably my favorite of the three, just because it resonates so much to what I've read about the Fey and how it changes you and it just, I don't know, to me it's something I've always wanted to see rules for in D&D. The Feybound are those that are been in the Fey for too long, and the magic of this domain starts to affect you in some special way. Greenseer and Killoran seem very similar almost. Greenseer is you're a plant-based, also affected by the Fey. So you could have been kissed by a very powerful druid or something weird like that to cause this effect on you.
Personally, like the Killerin. It's like Genasi but Feywild, and I really enjoyed that like a little bit. It's not exactly that, but it's enough of a take on that I can say it. But also that they made specifically like a racial feat related to that, where the abilities that you have in that can be grown upon, and it's not in a similar manner of like where elves are like, hey, you can get elven dexterity or whatever, like, or elven finesse, I forget what it's called. But for this, it's a racial feat that, like, if you choose a specific aspect of your growth, you can enhance it with this racial feat. And I really liked that they had one very unique feature for this. But I also like that you could be one of these creatures that's from like a jungle, a desert, a forest, or an area, and you like have physical traits of it. Again, not exactly Genasi like, or Ganassi. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that, but it's similar enough that like you are a bit of that natural world that you're from, and that was probably my favorite part of that one.
Yeah, I'm really glad that there's like options for how your character can look. You could have for the Feybound, you could have antlers, you could have butterfly wings, or just or fish scales all over your body. It's very very interesting looks and origins as well, which I thought they've done a really good job with.
Next from there, we had a lot of subclasses, like a lot. Like they even had artificers, like they had a bunch of things. I'm not going to go through all of them, but like artificer, at the very least, I'll say is calligrapher, which was a very interesting spin on that. But personally, like my personal favorite was the monk. Way of the Deep Winter, purely because I like ice characters, like Iceman. I like Todoroki. Like those are my characters of choice. Articuno, like those are always the things that I like to choose. So I won't go too into it, so that you guys can enjoy some of the later features. But I just enjoyed the idea of like emboldening yourself with powers of ice.
Cleric mirror domain, the fact to use reflective magic, and that makes sense. You can have abilities where you can, if you get shot with a magic spell, a range magic spell, you could direct it back against the user, or later on you could actually use it and direct it to one of your party members and to get healed instead. So that's I thought that was really unique and interesting. Druid Circle of Visions. It's almost like an oracle, but not really. It's a very its own unique take on dealing with dreams and that type of magic. Ranger Cosmic Caller. I think that might be one of my favorites. The idea that you could have some sort of like either elemental or so even a fey beast or a far realm beast, something very unique that could accompany you. I thought that was a really great idea.
Yeah, some of the other ones that were weird is that I say weird, and I don't mean in a bad way or a good way. It's kind of your own thing. The paladin was Oath of Beauty, which was interesting. The rogue is a reveler, Reveler. Jesus. um, and Sorcerer had Evil Eye, which is basically, hi, I'm cursed, so now you can also have my curse, which was interesting as well.
The barbarian subclass with the deal with the blinking path. I thought that was really interesting because I would guess that would have been more for a ranger, but how they added together with the barbarian, I thought was kind of clever. So it kind of, I love how each subclass is kind of expands beyond the trope of what each class is known for.
Yeah.
And real fast, wizard court magic. I just like the idea of someone that's trained in the fey of the magic, so they know how to resist it or manipulate the magic in the fey realm in some way. I thought that was that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a great time. Separate thing we should just mention is that the artwork for this is gorgeous. I know that some of the maps were made on Incarnate because I also use Incarnate, so I could tell that. But all of like the actual artwork, gorgeous pieces. Just a quick thing there. There's a couple new backgrounds. Clown and Streamer, I'm not going to touch on that much because again, just got to leave some things that are surprises for you guys. But it was an interesting aspect. I am still scared of clowns and will always be scared of clowns. So no clown backgrounds are allowed in my games.
They are well made backgrounds. I was impressed with how both were put together and how they fit well with the fey.
Yeah, they're very unique, which is great because the thing about backgrounds is they can get very very repetitive, and then with the ability to just customize your own, it's good to see like a fully fleshed out one that is unique, that really sits well by itself.
Yeah, spells. There's not a lot of it, but what they have, I really like. Arcane Hold. I've been waiting for a spell like that for some time. Everyone has seen it in TV or movies where someone's trying to get away by some sort of teleportation, and the sorcerer or wizard's like, "Oh, you don't," and they hold them in place. So finally, we have a spell for that. Glamour of Vanity is very interesting. So you disguise yourself, but it changes by the viewer what they most want to see. I thought that was a really interesting idea. I'm not sure how that will work for what purposes you may want it for, but I could see that being really fun to role play.
Look, yeah, if you give it to your players, they will be like, "Hey, I have this weird spell. I'm gonna find a use for it, and it's gonna be great." Yeah, they had a lot of things that were related to almost like even though vanity means like being vain and not like vanity a vanity mirror, even though a vanity mirror is about being vain. A lot of the things here in general have like they're not a lot like a quarter to half of the spells were related to like reflection stuff, which is really great. They had something called Imperfect Reflection, Glamour of Vanity. They had one called Reflect Refract. There's just like the idea of having more spells that are really, especially for those of you who probably watched a Marvel movie or two and have seen the mirror world stuff that Strange has done. It's just a fun image. The idea of making these mirrored things that help you and are useful to you. There's other spells too, like polymorphing an object, or one called Shout, which I'm not going to read because it's just great. I'll let you read that later. But they also had a few other feats besides the one racial feat that I mentioned earlier for the Cornell. I can never say it. Killerin. I have to have multiple documents open so I remember the words I'm saying. They had Arcane Savant, Enhanced Divination Ritual, Fey Luck, and Weapon Specialization. My favorite, honestly, is the really like easy version, which is Weapon Specialization, because I personally don't understand why you can have expertise in everything except the weapon you use about 3 times a day for battles. I think expertise in weapons should exist, and this is like a first step towards it, which I really enjoy.
Mine is a tie between Weapon Specialization and Fey Luck, and they're great feats. I think they're both very useful for potential shenanigans.
Yeah, Fey Luck is basically, hey, have a D6, have your own inspiration pool for yourself, which is great. And Weapon Specialization, basically, you automatically have a +1 to attack rolls with a very specific weapon, and then you have a +2 to damage rolls. So it is very good. And in like again, I think there should be more versions of that anyways, just because it's a thing that should exist for people who are purely martial classes, who like have limitations on what they can get. That is the thing that if you're just someone who likes to deal damage, just keep stacking up those feats that just give you more and more damage.
Magic items. I love this section. I thought everything in there is great. Bottle Fey, draw that bottle down and see what you get. Some sort of creature that'll help defend you or help you out or something. It could be a dryad, a darkling, a blink dog, satyr. It could be any of those and more.
Lots of Fey options. It's really fun.
Yes.
What I enjoyed is that they had a couple options from the Mythic Odysseys from Theros, which is just great because it gives you a little more versatility with Fey stuff. Just to have like these almost, I know it wasn't purely Greek, but they are Greek inspired normally creatures that came from Theros, and like the idea to have a few of those as options, great, love it.
The Davix dancing drum. I don't know if as a dungeon master, I would love this item, but as a player, I kind of want to use it and cause chaos.
They do have items from common to legendary, which is great. They may have had an artifact in here, but I don't remember reading it. But like they have a whole variety of items. I had two personal favorites. First, they had a thing called the Deck of Fortune / the Deck of Torments, which was very interesting. It was just another take on, a deck thing, and it's unique. It has its own unique setup. I very much recommend, if you get this, to check that out, because that could be very fun, and it gives really good role-playing moments along with like really good rewards when your players have like been trudging through a lot of crap, and you're like, I'm going to reward you, but it's also going to screw with you a little bit. It's a really great item for that. There's also, I had a character who personally had a familiar that got turned into a Korrid, which is basically like a small Fey guy. Just imagine like if Danny DeVito, Satyr, Phil, but like hairier is what a Korrid is. And the item was called the Irony Locks, which is basically a whip made from Korrid hair, which is supposed to be like one of the toughest materials in the Feywild. It's just a really unique weapon, and as someone who had to deal with Korrids for a while, it's really fun to see.
This chapter also goes ahead and talks about like flowers of the Feywild, which is great. If you're a fan of all things Fey, you can't really trust that domain. And you can't trust what seems like maybe average to you might be much more magical. So there's a whole section about flowers. They even incorporate some adventure hooks with the flowers. So each magical property may help or enhance your adventure.
There's also a whole section called Fey Trinkets, which isn't too far afterwards, which is just like, here's a random book with this really weird title, or here is a random knapsack that another creature left that you find. It's just fun because then you have these little things. I don't know about you, but whenever you have a chance to be like, as a player, to be like, what are these random items I have? Can I make something stupid with this? This is one of those things where it's like, hey, you have a signet ring from this random house that you don't know about. Maybe you're a rogue or a bard and you want to pretend you're from that house. Like, it just gives you these chances to be really awful and really awesome. Optional rules.
Yeah, so I really like the section because there needs to be. I feel like there needs to be a section where dungeon masters can understand how to create a Fey setting. What tools. They need some tools available so they can help create it. So I'm really glad for these optional options. That makes sense. These optional rules. We want to talk about what you like first, and I'll just.
Sure. I had two favorites. They had four things, and I'll just name them real quick. They had Fey portals, an interesting part of dealing with Fey stuff in general. Cold iron, which for anyone who knows a little bit about Fey stuff, iron / metal in general can be very bad for Fey creatures. Fey glamours, which again, a thing that's very popular with the Fey is having glamorous distractions, illusions. And then a section called altering monster sizes, which is basically a chart system for if you have a small creature or a tiny creature and you want to make it gargantuan for whatever reason. Maybe you're what is the name of the story? Alice in Wonderlanding it, and you're changing sizes or something. Who knows? But the capability of changing the sizes of creatures, which is great. I personally, I love cold iron. As a person who enjoys Fey stuff, just that in general, it's the smallest section, but it is very relative because if you use if you want to stay fairly realistic to face stuff, which you don't need to, having cold iron is a great thing to have. But I loved altering monster sizes a lot, because as a person who again, people shrink, people grow. Maybe you take a tiny thing and you want to make it gargantuan. Well, this thing puts up a system, and it's not super complex. It takes a bit to read through it, but it's not insanely complex, and it's simple enough that if you are on the fly making these decisions, you can look at this and make it work. How about you?
The other two sections, Fey Portals, I think it's great to have, because if you look at Stardust, there's that stone wall. That's the entrance to the Fey. In Labyrinth is a book, or maybe a name. Depends how you interpret that scene. Not name, it would be a poem, actually, I believe. So yeah, I think that's cool to have, so that, again, dungeon masters have creative ways, learn how to have creative ways of introducing their
Narnia
world.
had the wardrobe. There's just a lot of anything can be a portal if you think about it hard enough.
True.
And
Flake
now
Glamours.
you're thinking with portals. That's all.
Fey Glamours, it's just tools about how to change some of the abilities of the creatures that are there. Some advice of what to do, and charts.
And then, I mean, there's a small section that gives you examples of what happens when you change sizes. So they have like a tiny T-Rex, a gargantuan butterfly. It's good. It's a great system. Like, if you got this for nothing else, the chart alone for converting things size-wise is just super helpful. Even if you don't use it exactly, again, I can't speak enough to how great it is to have a good system like that.
So we're up to the bestiary. I think it's a phenomenal section. The Butterfly Queen. I love the description of herself and her world, and adventure hooks. All right, that's what's great. A lot of these, especially a lot of the major monsters in this section, all have these great adventure hooks. So it's just the stats and the description. It tells you how this can interact into your campaign. I've been waiting for stats for Dark Unicorn. So I'm glad that this exists.
That is great. I found another thing that has a Dread Unicorn stat, and again, yeah, it's just nice having like a little variance on the normal unicorn, just a little variety. There's two creatures that I really loved. One was the Candling. I just loved that for the simplicity of it. It's very much like, hey, will-o-wisps are little. Now, what if they weren't? And it's so simple that I kind of want a book that just thought, but what if this creature was the opposite of the way it normally is, which is kind of like what the Dark Unicorn is as well. And I just want a whole book that's just literally like, hey, what if a lich wasn't a dog? What if he was like kind of benevolent for whatever reason? I would read that book. The other creature that I loved, because I personally love stained glass and mosaics, is the glass whale. The glass whale, the best way I can describe it, is a creature made out of stained glass. So like if you have ever been to a church or a lot of other buildings that have like the stained glass windows that are gorgeous and beautiful. Now imagine a creature, an animated object that comes to life in a humanoid form and wants to kill you. And it's amazing, and I love it. And I'm using this in a campaign because I just love literally the design and aspect of it. And I also just love stained glass. So yes, the glass whale is a really fun construct of a creature.
Yeah, and so again, this section has like some humorous monsters, like the Shambling Bouquet, or has something as dangerous as the Feynorn, which is, I guess, the Fey's answer to liches.
Yep.
So again, this section is great.
Also, if you just really like cats, there is something called the Shimmer Cat. I'm not going to say any more on that, but Shimmer Cat.
The next section talks about one of the domains of the Feywild, Dualis, which is very interesting. For a small section, there's a lot of information in here, and I don't want to be too spoilery. So I'll say I like the idea of the duality of the world. You know, if something happens in one section, there's something just like it happening somewhere around there. You may have a copy, and you have a copy of yourself there, wherever that may be. You gotta be careful that you don't get caught by the load of reflections. So it's such a weird, like Alice in Wonderland meets like Stardust in a way. It's a fantastic world, very well done.
Yeah, it is. It's it's hard to tell you anything without spoiling it. And again, there's artwork with it that is like gore. Like the first piece of artwork where you see what is probably like a family, that's the best way I can put it. It's gorgeous and haunting and wonderful. After that, you have encounters, and they also have two adventures. The encounters, we won't go again. Why give you the encounters? Because that's the thing you might want to use or read about yourself. But they're fun, and they give the Fey vibes. They give those solid Fey vibes that you are looking for. From I can't tell you because that would ruin it. Uh, uh,
But
but
these adventures are they're inspired by all sorts of stories. There's one definitely inspired by Shakespeare's Midsummer's Night Dream. One I'm pretty sure is Never Ending Story. I might be wrong about that.
I think so too. I don't know if we're right, but I also had that exact same feeling. So I'm glad about that.
You know,
Uh, and then they had a pair of adventures, and again, um, it's hard to get too complicated with it, but they give you the first adventure is levels 1 to 4, which is great. So like if you're just starting off wandering in the Feywild, that could be a great place to start. Then they have a fairly not lengthy, but quite a bit longer adventure that is I don't remember the leveling for that, but I think you get like into the 2-digit levels by the end of it. So like it's a solid like you could play a fairly sizable campaign with just this book, which is great. And then if not, you could just break things down to random encounters, and you got a lot of random creatures that could be their own individual encounters or own domains. It's a lot. It's great.
this is a very well designed, very thought out book.
They have a few like encounter maps towards the end too that if you are playing online you can use, or you could probably print them. I don't know how they'd be if you printed them on normal paper, but it's possible. And then at the very end, near the appendix section, there is a small section with familiars, just a few new ones, like a tiny blink dog or like having a candling as a pet. And then there's a wild effects chart, which like you had to have it.
I wish this was part of the main book, part of the Wild Beyond the Witchlight book. There was one big flaw that the Wild Beyond the Witchlight book had, was that there is no rules to explain and create your own Feywild domain. They mention it, but there's no rules for it. And this book is only 144 pages, and has like such many great options, whether it be lineages, subclasses, spells, magic guide. It has like, and of course the rules about how you can create a domain of delight. So I'm very happy with this book. I would definitely use this in my adventures. I actually may even, if I had to play in the Fae, I think I'd rather use this than Wild Beyond the Witchlight, honestly. At least this I could homebrew my own version of the Fae.
Yeah, you can combine the two, but definitely like this gives you so much more to just make it yourself, which is great. So like if you find an idea or you see a creature in here and you're like, oh, I could run a whole thing off of this one creature, and there you go. Now you have ideas for that you can use. You have items or creatures or NPCs to put in that world that you can use. It's great. It really is great. It's like it's a 4.5 or 5 dragon heads. Out of 5 dragon heads for me. I'm gonna make that a thing. I swear to God, I'm gonna make that a thing. Yeah, 4.5 Tiamat heads out of 5.
Yeah, I would say the same. So yes, you can find us at dmsguild.com. Again, the book is called The Feywild Companion.
It was produced by Splinterverse. Produced and published by Splinterverse, who also has a book called Van Richten's Librum of Lineages as well, and Potions Unlocked. These are at the back of the book, and I'm just dropping the plug real quick because I'm sure they would appreciate it.
Yeah, and I honestly I would check it out. I'm personally I want to check them out because seeing how much work they put into this. I'm very curious to see what have they done to Ravenloft and some of their ideas for potions. That must be really fascinating.
Yeah, 30 plus potions sounds great. Like right there alone, just the fact that there's 30 potions right there makes me excited.
All right. Well, what is it about the Fae that you like? Is there any stories or movies or that you like? Is there anything you recommend to us to watch? Let us know in the comments below. So thank you very much for watching. Stay safe out there. Get your shots. We'll see you soon.
See ya.